the virtual library workshops. And this one is on the Humanities and Social Sciences Literature Review. My colleague and co-presenter is Erin Durham, and I am Drew Alfgren, and we are both reference and subject specialists in the humanities and social sciences. And as Erin already noted, this is going to be recorded. So if you miss anything, or if you don't get a chance to ask your questions, we are both available. Erin will have contact information on the last slide. And this review is very liberally adapted from several different literature review sessions that have been done elsewhere, have been done on UMBC's campus by Dr. Musgrove, one of the history professors. And it's a basic introduction to how you should do literature review.
Thank you so much, Drew. And thanks to all who have joined. So thinking about a literature review, so many of you may be writing literature reviews right now for articles you're working on or for assignments in different classes. So sometimes a literature review is assigned as a standalone course project. But as you as we will show examples of, literature reviews are often a portion of a larger article or book or dissertation. And so the main purpose of a literature review is to give an overview of a topic. So you're going to discuss arguments that scholars have made in the past. And instead of just listing out those arguments, you want to provide analysis and you want to synthesize those conversations that have taken place. So your goal is to show how the conversation has changed over time, how the research has different interpretations have been put forth by different scholars, some of the main scholars, and how that has the trajectory of that conversation and that topic. Writing a literature review also allows you to identify gaps in the research. So if you're maybe doing this for a class and thinking forward to writing an article, and just a reminder, to mute yourself. I'm trying to mute as people join, but I have missed some folks. Thank you. So again, as you're writing your literature review, it allows you to identify gaps. And this is important because then you can make the case for why your research is relevant and why it matters. So for the next slide, it shows that you're an expert and that you are aware of the larger conversation, and it allows you to state the relevance of your research. So we're going to go over some of these steps in greater detail, but just to provide an overview at the beginning, you want to identify your research topic, and then that develops into your specific research question. You want to find your sources and organize and synthesize them, take notes as you're studying the articles, and then you have the writing process itself and the revising and the editing. So to give an example, I'm currently working on a paper with some colleagues on student agency in the writing and research process. So we're looking at literature from writing studies, we're looking at literature from information literacy and research and how students learn in the classroom setting. So we all have different portions of that. And right now I'm in the process of looking for articles. I'm using the library databases, I'm using Google Scholar, I'm downloading the PDFs, I'm putting them in Google folders. I'm also have a running document with all the citations. The next step I would do is then to read them and take notes, and then prepare for the writing process. So that just gives a general overview. Again, we'll go over these steps in greater detail. So a question to ponder, we're going to show some examples, but be thinking and feel free to put your answers in the chat. How is writing a literature review similar to having a conversation? We are going to look at a few examples. So the first example, Drew, if you want to talk through this a little bit.
Sure. And the thing to always look for when you're trying to identify the type of literature review that we're talking about is you don't want to be, and you will find them very frequently, you're not talking about a systematic review. you're not talking about looking at all of the research that's been done on a topic and trying to correlate between outcomes, that kind of thing. What you want to do is you want to look at the research that's been written about your topic, not so much about your topic, but about your topic in the discipline. So if you scroll down through this article, Erin, I think you can do that. You'll see that there is, and this is practice literature on language brokering. So if you scroll down, these authors have done a fairly nice job of identifying authors that have written on the topic that they are researching and published this material. And if this is very hard to read online, but what you're looking at is just citation, a lot of citations to work that has been done that will reflect on your work. The whole idea is to put your work in the context of the larger disciplinary research that's been done. Why is your language, why is your research important? How does it fit in with what others have done? How do those people reflect differences of opinion within the discipline? It places your research into the larger framework. And you can see this here, characteristics. And what you're looking for is you're going to see a lot of works cited. So the whole point of a good literature review is to say, oh, well, these are really good people who were talking about this. And then these other people came along and started talking about it from this point of view. And my work is going to draw on some of the first group of people with characteristics of the second group of people. So that's the kind of thing you want to do.
Excellent. That's a good example. And you can kind of see summaries happening, this literature review towards several important characteristics, right? So there's some analysis happening here. And we'll see that also in this example coming up. This is from a dissertation, so different from, different from a smaller article. This will be book length. So this is a narrative inquiry of second language teacher agency in promoting culturally responsive pedagogy. This is a dissertation from 2020, so earlier this spring. And I know it's difficult to see on my screen. I apologize for that. We will share the slides out after. But I'm going to scroll down to the table of contents. There's the abstract and the acknowledgements. Sorry. Here we go. We have the table of contents for this dissertation. You can see the first chapter is the introduction and the statement of the problem. It provides the research question. And then in chapter 2 is the literature review. I thought this was a very good example because it's a really nice outline. In the table of contents, you can see how well organized this is. You have different themes grouped already. So you have the theme of culturally responsive pedagogy and different elements of that. This is still the literature review. You have another theme on critical reflection and the definition of it, connections, the research. And then you have a third theme on teacher identity and agency. And then again, you have some of the details there, the defining teacher agency and the research. So that's how it's outlined in the table of contents. Let's take a look at the actual section in this dissertation. So I'm going to scroll to that chapter. Here we go. So chapter 2, literature review. You can see already there, just like in the article that Drew was showing, the point is to cite major scholars in an area. And there's the theoretical frameworks and there's some definitions here. Critical theory is part of that. And agency, the framework which this author is approaching agency. And then here we have the first theme of the literature section. And so there's going to be another 15 pages or so just on culturally responsive pedagogy, right? Because that's a huge area. Lots of scholars have talked about this, and you can see all the different citations and how this scholar is situating the research. And then if we scroll down another 15 pages or so, there would be the other section on, I think it was critical reflection. and then another section on teacher identity, right? So the idea is to think about your topic and the different themes that scholars are focused on, and to interweave and provide analysis for those different interpretations. All right, so hopefully seeing those examples, you can think again about how a literature review is like a conversation. So feel free to unmute yourself if you want to chime in or share something in the chat.
There is a question in the chat, Erin. So
yeah, I want to take that. I can't see it right now.
Sure. How do you ensure that the question you're asking wasn't answered previously if you missed a source during your research? Well, think about the conversation. You will hear other people talking about other sources and other people that they have read. You're never going to see everything. I mean, given the amount of publication that's going on these days, but you will be able to identify seminal works, major themes, and that's what you want to shoot for. You will never be able to identify everything. So don't even be too worried about that. And what we should stress is that this conversation should also be with your advisor and your professors. Your advisor is going to be really important to this process because they're the ones who are going to be reading and reviewing your work, and you want to have active and ongoing conversation with them as well. So believe me, if you miss something, if you miss a major piece of lit or a major author, they should inform you. I mean, hopefully they will be the ones that say, hey, go read this person. So.
And then I will also just mention, as you're writing your literature review, you, even just looking at the example of that dissertation we saw, they were writing about teacher agency on English language teaching from the perspective of cultural pedagogy, culturally responsive pedagogy. So again, they're pulling from, that dissertation topic was unique in that it was using all three elements. Again, it was exploring cultural relevant pedagogy as a set, and then it was looking at teacher agency. And the unique thing about the dissertation is that they were pulling all of those together. And so they were providing a dissertation that was unique in that way. Okay, great. Yeah, keep the questions coming in the chat. Okay, so sometimes visuals can help you think about ways to organize a literature review or the process of it. At least they help me. So think about concept maps or like cloud bubbles where you're just outlining different themes that you're noticing. So as you're searching for sources and as you're identifying different scholars, just jotting down some of the main points or maybe the methodologies that they have. And however it helps you, if you can outline it or if you can put different sticky notes of different themes and kind of arrange them on a whiteboard or a wall. You can notice all these different sections are porous, right? So there's going to be overlap quite a bit as you're looking at these different scholars.
And there's another question, Erin, I'm sorry. How do you stop from going down endless rabbit holes by checking out all of the previous literature that is cited in articles? I'm having trouble knowing when to stop. That's a good one for this thing here. So my take is that you will start seeing authors that get repeatedly cited. You'll see trains, you'll see seminal articles, you'll see seminal books, you'll see big names, you'll see when you start getting into the disciplinary literature, it will become evident where these big streams of thoughts are coming from. And when we get to things like Oxford bibliographies and Sage Research, you'll see you just draw the line somewhere and say, unless you come across someone who is unique and you want to follow them and say, I want to introduce this into the conversation. And that's perfectly reasonable. And that's something else you can think of too. So.
Yeah. All right, another way to think about your literature reviews in just different buckets, right? So you have different themes, different topics. As you take apart papers, maybe some will go into two different buckets, right? There's a scholar who fits a couple different themes and just taking some notes on that or color coding that article or that scholar can help you keep track of some of those different themes and how to group them together.
And this is how not to write a literature review. Author 1 says this, author 2 says this, author 3 says this, author 4 says this, and you're done. That's not it. What you want to do is you want to say that these authors are talking in this bubble, and these authors are talking in this bubble. This is the overlap. Bubble 1 is no longer considered to be the primary emphasis in the discipline. Bubble 2 is where most research is tending toward now. Bubble 3 is where I want to take a little bit of bubble 1 and a lot of bubble 2 and create bubble 4. So it's like what I tell history students, chronology is not history. This happened, this happened, this happened, this happened is not a history paper. It's a chronology. When you go in and you look at some different sources and then you apply your reasoning to create a unique statement about those events, that's a history. So that's exactly what's going on here.
Yeah, and so this is how to write a literature review.
Yeah.
Just as Drew was saying, you want to be grouping your topics into these different themes, and then throughout you're arguing towards a specific interpretation. So you have different subheadings and different themes. Looking back to the examples we showed, there were often subheadings that gave different themes, and then the discussion of the scholars happened in the paragraphs below. So you really do want to be thinking about this in terms of major themes and major topics. And then as you're describing these different scholars, you want to be interweaving them together and also pointing out the interpretation that you hold as significant to your argument. You want to be pulling out anything that's going to help you show your method and your approach to a certain topic.
And there's another question it's interesting. It sounds like we should do the lit review, and based on our findings, the research question will emerge. Well, it is kind of chicken and egg. I mean, you're not in this program without having some interest in the program, in the discipline. And you will, if you're graduate students or upper level undergraduate students, you've been reading in the discipline for several years now. So hopefully you have some idea of where you want to, or what you want to work on. That will lead you to some of the lit, and then other lit will lead you to more lit. So it really is breadcrumbs. So, but you have to start with some idea of what you like. There's nothing worse than trying to research a topic you have no interest in. So.
Yeah, and I really like the point in the chat. It's very cyclical, right? And it's iterative. So you may have a topic at the beginning when you start searching for sources, and as you continue to search for sources and you're starting to develop notes and you're starting to write an outline, that is actually the point that you may have your research question emerge. Or it may change a little bit. You may have a research question at the beginning, and as you read the literature, you may realize that you need to adjust that. And that is, all those different ways are totally legitimate. And all of those ways are excellent ways of doing scholarship. So a little bit more in detail, you want to pick a working topic. And again, I will turn this over to Drew. I'm talking over his slide.
It's exactly what we just were talking about. Pick a working topic. Consult with your advisor. That should be in flashing red lights. So, and review older works done at every department is going to have a certain flavor to it, you're going to have different, you might have different camps in a large department. So you can definitely talk to different people who are approaching what you would like to work on from different ways. So what's Dominique? I assume your actual topic is talk about in all of these things, but these things are different ways of looking at this topic. Yeah, well, yes. I mean, you have to start with something to at least get to the lit. You have to have something to search on in order to find material. So choose the literature you're going to review. Well, it's like we have on the library homepage, there's that big article search that searches across all of our databases. And what you get is a whole mishmash of different disciplinary sources. If you're working on a topic in a specific discipline, go look in the disciplinary databases for your topic or your keywords or whatever, however you choose to start this, and see what develops. Because it's very hard to do something that's legitimately interdisciplinary. You get a lot of things that are multidisciplinary that don't stray into interdisciplinary at all. But you have to have something to start with, and you have to have some basic idea of where you want to anchor your search. So look in the disciplinary lit. Choose some topics, choose some keywords, talk to your advisor, and just see what's out there. And when we get to the products that help with that, you'll see exactly what we're talking about. So, and then analyze. Read broadly to start. That's the thing. You may find out that what you think is an original idea was discussed and discarded 4 decades ago. So, there's people have been working on in all of these disciplines for a long time. So all sorts of things have come up, been discarded, come back, get accepted. It's fun. So it is.
And just to give some examples of the the process of the literature. Oh, yeah. So you can do many different ways of organizing your notes. I tend to be kind of boring, and I just have a Google Doc where I have the citation of the article. After skimming through the article, I will read a little more closely and take notes on it. And at the end of that, I will just write a 2 to 3 sentence summary. So that's what's worked for me. But there's lots of different ways to do this. So you can use color-coded Post-it notes. You can use a binder where you have different tabs or different folders, physical folders or Google folders. There's lots of ways to organize the trends in the research. And kind of along with the conversation we had about what is the point that you have your research question, after you've found different themes and common findings, you're going to realize what theories are emerging as the most prominent currently in 2020. And that can help you really pin down your thesis statement. Once you've taken a step back and spent all this time reading the literature and analyzing it and looking at themes, that's when you can really pinpoint your research statement. At that point, you can organize your paper. So now it's focused more on what you are going to share, and you can't share everything. You've just spent, I don't know, weeks, months looking at all the literature review. You want to make sure that you are looking at the things that are most significant and what is most relevant to your specific argument that you're making. You can point out some of, as you look at the themes and as you look at your notes, you can develop subheadings and headings that will help organize your paper as you progress through. And then for the writing process, everyone does this differently, but the main thing is you want to focus on analysis. And then the actual writing, if you want to just sit down and write 2 hours a day, if you have a session where you write and then you set it aside and then come back to it and edit and revise and then write a little bit more, whatever system works for you, you want to find a nice flow for your writing.
Erin, there's another question. How is our lit review distinct from our explanation of the rationale for the study research? Is it essentially just an expanded and more in-depth argument about why the research is needed based on prior literature? Yeah, basically. Some disciplines are more on the sciencey end of things, and some are more on the humanities ends of things, but it's essentially the same thing. The rationale for the study research is why you're choosing this topic. I mean, and the lit review is just supporting or providing the framework, the context in which your research is going to be situated. So it's
Yeah, and
basically the same thing. So
if I can add, and
yeah.
just to add one thing, looking at our like the example we had before from the dissertation, you can see actually how. Let me go back.
There it is.
Oh dear, sorry.
There it is.
Can you still see my screen okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. So if you look at the dissertation we looked at earlier, in chapter 1, there's just an overall statement of the problem and the significance of it. So you're just kind of giving a very brief overview as to why your topic's important. And then in the literature review section, you're going into greater detail and pulling through the scholars that have talked about the topic. Yeah. I hope that answers the question. So yes, it is a more in-depth version in the literature review after you've already stated the significance earlier. Okay.
We did that.
Oh.
Okay, so these are two different databases that we subscribe to that can point you to the kind of things we're talking about. If anybody has ever used a paper bibliography, of which we have many in the library, this is what bibliographies do. Do you want to click on the Oxford bibliographies first, Erin?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is speaking of old things becoming new again. This is Oxford, big old Oxford, redoing the classic bibliography in an online format. And what they do is, and what this does is, you have individual entries just like an encyclopedia or a dictionary. But when you click on one, what it does is just it gives you an overview. It gives you journal issues. It gives you anthologies. It gives you bibliographies. And it gives you a selection of articles. So right here, they aren't making any assumptions about the topic. They are including the major works. They are including the journals that cover it. They include anthologies so if you have a topic in cinema and media studies and you are working on acting, go in and take a look at this, because this will give you an anchor from which to start exploring. That's exactly what these are good for. The nice thing about these Oxford bibliographies is that they are constantly being updated. They're a subscription product. So instead of a print static bibliography, which can go rapidly out of lose usefulness pretty rapidly, these are constantly being updated. So, and we have a selection of those, kind of a random selection. We have anthropology, we have cinema, classics, Atlantic history, social work, anthropology, and they all do essentially the same thing. So that's that. And then we were talking about major works. Sage Knowledge is another database that we own, that we subscribe to. Here's a good plug for, go back one real quick. Go back to the screen. We're running a trial of Sage research methods. So if you want to go in and look at examples of case studies, data sets, qualitative and quantitative analysis, project planning, go in there. That's going to be up for another 2 weeks. So it's a wonderful resource. Sage Knowledge gives you access to hard copy books, hard copy reference material. But more importantly, if you scroll down, we have Sage books, we have Sage reference, CQ Press, Navigator. Navigator is the one where you want to look. And what this does is it's a new product from Sage, and they call it Navigator. But what it does is it outlines both major works which you can also call as seminal works. And then type in, what were we looking at earlier, Erin?
Oh, yeah. We were looking at media studies and gender.
Yeah, if you scroll down a little bit, you can see like what they're doing.
You could do any of these topics.
Right. This is all of what Sage covers. So, and then you do this, and then they have this kind of stuff. But if you put in a keyword, if you just go into a keyword search, where are we here? Okay. See, it's saying major works. So major works are also called benchmark works. They're called all different kinds of things. But these are the ones that have been widely read. These are the ones that have produced major research areas in a discipline. So, and it gives you a summary, it gives you an overview, it gives you key readings. So it's a really nice place to explore when you're looking for a topic or you want to narrow down a topic. It'll give you all sorts of really nice places to look and continue your research from. So
excellent. Now, so we talked about two specific databases, Sage Knowledge and the Oxford bibliographies. I also just wanted to point out just the main search on the library. And as Drew talked about earlier, if you do an article search, it's going to pull from most of the databases we have. So that's going to be our business database. That's going to be our education databases. Those are going to be our social work disciplines, right? So if you have a topic, and you do an article search, that's going to pull in from everything we have. Oh, here's my mouse. And you even just by scrolling through the results, this can be useful because it can help identify some of the major articles, but it also gives you kind of the database it's coming from. So this is professional development collection. This is coming from our social index.
Social index, yep.
Yep. This is coming from JSTOR. So you can just see kind of how it's pulling from all the different databases. This is a sports. So
but look at the number of articles it pulled on that. I mean, honestly, you couldn't read 136,000 abstracts in 20 years if you, well, maybe you could if you tried really hard. But you know, this is the kind of thing that you get. This is the kind of thing that happens when you do a Google search. Put quote marks around critical pedagogy and see what that does to the result list. There are all sorts of little tips and tricks in searching that we really see. Now you just knocked out 118,000 articles by making it critical pedagogy instead of two keywords.
And the other thing you can do is obviously limit by publication date. So if you just want the last 5 years or 10 years, that can be another good way to help limit.
Now, and just we've sort of gotten off track here. This is a really good search if you're doing anything outside of the environmental and ecology. If you have anything that you're doing on environment and ecology, you may not want to use this search because this does not search the databases that we buy for environmental science. It's a different vendor. They don't play nicely with this vendor, so they are not included in the search. So that's why we have disciplinary subject guides. So you can go into things like and disciplinary databases. You can search for databases by keywords. So if you type ecology in databases or environment in databases, you'll pull up the environmental stuff or the ecology. There we go.
So you can search for a specific discipline.
Right.
And let me try that one more time just so you can see that. It was pretty quick. So instead of just doing a general article search that has most of our databases, but not all, you can do the database tab and type in your topic. And then that will give you the specific disciplinary databases that you can look at.
yet. So,
Any questions on that or anything that we've gone over?
this is trying to just point you in the direction of the disciplinary lit. It's because there's so much out there these days. So.
One other thing I will mention is we do have subject guides for all the different majors here. So if you're interested in looking at what some of the major literature, some of the major databases to look at, you can go to the subject guides and it will list out some of those disciplinary based databases. All right. Yeah, so I also want to show an example from the ProQuest dissertation and theses database. So we can click on this. So I'll share the slides out. But to get here from the home page, let me just show that as well. Again, you would click on database and you could just type in dissertation. And it is going to pull up the databases relating to dissertation. It's this first one, dissertations and theses. It's a ProQuest database.
Erin, can you go back one slide real quick?
Yeah. This one?
Yes. If you want to look and see what work has been done at UMBC, click on the second one, because these are the ones that have been produced by people in your department, if you've got a graduate department. So these will be just master's theses and dissertations from people who have graduated from UMBC. And that can be very helpful in helping you delineate what areas of interest are in your department, who you might want to work with, all of that. So.
And that is really fun. So you have the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, which is really cool. And you can limit by date too. This is all the way back from 85, so you could look at the most recent. Then going back to the national one, this is global, so it has international dissertations as well. You can put in a research topic. And you can search. And again, you're going to have, we have over 500. These are all dissertations. And you can look through. You can click on any of them. You can limit by publication date. Look at the more recent ones. You can take a look. And again, it's going to give you a PDF of it. You can scroll through. You can look at, you can read the whole dissertation. You can look at just the references. But
just the abstract.
Or just the abstract, yeah. And it can be really helpful just to do some searches on your topic, looking at dissertations to get examples of how they've organized the literature review, and then also to get citations. If it's a recent one, it's a good way to pull citations and look at the research that's been done.
Also, if you're doing a dissertation, it's also to identify work that may have other people that may have worked on exactly the same thing as you. So you may want to modify your topic, however slightly or whatever. These days, dissertation topics are getting very fine-grained simply because there are so many people out there doing work in a topic that sometimes you have to just move your topic a little to the left, a little to the right. It's this is a wonderful database. We also have one for international dissertations and theses too, that the Network Digital Library of Theses and Dissertations. And these are, you may have noticed or you may not have noticed, the Europeans, European countries, Asian countries, some of them are very much way ahead of us in open access and whatever, and you will see a lot of interesting research being done here too. So.
And then finally, we're going to show one final database that can be useful, and this is actually Web of Science.
Ah, yes. For anybody who was asking about how to identify seminal articles, Web of Science works strictly off of citations. So if you go into Web of Science and you search on your topic, this is what happens. And this works really, really, really well if you're doing a STEM topic, and works pretty well in the social sciences too. So throw in a topic, this is what you get. It'll sort by date first, and then you can go in and you can see time cited articles. So date, you get 000 because it takes time. But these, so what did we search on, Erin?
This was critical media and gender. So some of these are not as useful. You'll want to scroll down the first couple results. We could change our search too.
Well, yeah, it's usually when you're searching on a topic like this, it's always good to try and either use, and then you'll see things like, see that number 10, post-feminism, new feminist visibilities in post-feminist times. See how that's a highly cited paper? That's one of the highly cited ones. If you scroll up to the top of that list, you'll see ones that were cited many, many times.
And what's nice is then you can click on find it to look at the article itself, but you can also look at the citations both forward and backward. Those that this author cited, but then also scholars that have cited this author.
This is a really nice tool for doing tracking across authors, across topics, because you will see that this number 10 by Rosalind Gill, you can see how you can then go, if you click on the 159, it will give you links to the articles that cited her paper, and then you can go into the record for 10, and it will show you the ones that she cited. So you can trace down through cited articles pretty nicely. So then it'll say over on the left, look over on the left, there's Web of Science categories, women's studies, communication, sociology, cultural studies. It's just another tool. It's another tool to help you define the lit that you want to read, to identify really major authors, to see seminal works, just like that major works that was in Sage Navigator. This does the same thing, kind of the same thing in the journal lit. So it's a nice tool. It's if you like citation studies, which is rare, but there's a lot in this that can make your life easier. So
yeah, so we've covered quite a bit. There was a question, it looks like someone answered in the chat. That's great. I can show that again. The question was about how to find the dissertations. So I can demonstrate that if that's useful. Again, you can go to the library homepage and type in database. You can do this for anything that we search today. You could put in Sage Knowledge. You could put in Web of Science. You could just type dissertation, and it will get you to the ProQuest thesis and dissertation database. And then again, we talked about these first three. The first one is dissertations globally through ProQuest. The second one is UMBC only, and the third one was international databases. So we are now at the question section. And also just to mention ways that you can reach out and get help. Feel free to put any questions you have in the chat, or feel free to unmute yourself. I will mention that if you go to the library homepage and you're doing searches and you're having trouble accessing an article, or if you have a question, or if you want just help on anything that comes up, there is the little Ask a Librarian chat, which is open 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. during the week. Otherwise, we'll get an email and we will answer that the next business morning.
Please, especially now with everybody working from home or whatever, if you see something not working for you, please let us know. So things like that are easy to fix if we know about them, but we need to know about them. So let us know in the chat or whatever. So, and
then we are happy to get emails directly. So there's my colleague's email to Alfgren, just Alfgren at UMBC, and then Durham for me. So feel free to just
and show me what research appointments are for everybody else.
Yeah, and then you can always set up a virtual appointment. So I'll also show you how to get here from the library homepage. But it's library.umbc.edu/make-a-research-appointment. Let's go from the library homepage, click Research Help, and make a research appointment. And this allows you to scroll through the different subject areas. So for example, Drew is a mix of humanities and social science disciplines. I do performing arts and humanities for the most part. So whatever your topic is, you can click a schedule appointment and a little calendar will pop up and you can just put the date and time that works for you. So it's pretty simple. It will be online. We'll be using WebEx or Google Meet for those appointments. Yeah.
And honestly, the big takeaways we want you to have from this, the things that we always stress are have an ongoing conversation with your advisor as this progresses. That's the first big thing. And the second thing is we subscribe to a whole lot of material. So using the library web, you should never have to pay for anything that you find. So if you're out Googling around and you come across something, throw it into the library searches, see whether we already have full text access or whether or not we have it in print in the library. We are doing some basic checkout now. But more to the point is you want to utilize the resources we have, which are pretty extensive. So it makes life easier. So interlibrary loan is definitely still an option. For journal articles really weren't horribly affected by this because nearly all of our journalets online, all the indexing is online. All of our journals, I don't think I can think of any journal that we only get in that's only published in print and doesn't have a digital version available. ILL will get you any kind of article that we don't have. It used to be a 24-hour turnaround time. Now we're saying maybe 3 or 4 days because there's only one ILL person in the library. And just like our library, everybody else, there's only a few people in. So it may take a little longer. But yes, ILL will get you articles. It can get you book chapters. We are starting to do a little bit of hard copy ILL requests, but that's going to take a very long time to arrive. And there's still no borrowing from other USM campuses yet. So that's still in the works. But to start with, you can, yes, ILL is, short answer is ILL is an option. If you don't have an account, set it up. You're paying for it, use it. So.
And then you can always set one up using the library. Click on My Accounts, and it should be the second one here.
And it's nowadays, it's just once you set it up, it's like any other database. It's your username and password that you log in with. Do you meet with people to give feedback on lit reviews? That would be something that that's something your advisor would. We're good at pointing we're good at pointing you at things. We are good in our own disciplines, we might be, but I would not feel confident reading a lit review on social work. So I could read one on history, but you really want to talk to, you should have a network of advisors and professors that you're comfortable talking with that you can go and discuss things with on a regular basis. So, Erin, do you have anything?
Oh yeah, I was just going to say we're happy to help you work through the process of developing a literature review. But just like Drew said, I would not be comfortable giving you feedback. That would be something your advisor, you'd want to work closely with your advisor on that.
Any other questions? comments? We're trying to get all of our functions back to some sort of regularity as we progress. Doing this all from home is difficult for everybody, so we understand. Ask questions, contact us at any time. I mean, honestly, we know it's equally difficult for you folks too. So, and we will send this out. Erin will be sending the slides. So,
And I think it takes about 12 hours or so for the WebEx to process the recording, but we will also send out the full recording. Yeah.
yes.
And yeah, thank you everyone so much. We know that you have a busy week ahead, and good luck with everything. It's a stressful time in the semester, but you'll be awesome. So thanks for joining, and have a good rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. Stay healthy. Stay well. That's scary.
All right.
Are you getting all the little beeps?